I've got the honor of introducing today's speaker, Dr. Meria Carstarphen. She has been superintendent of the Atlanta Public Schools since 2014. She was hired to get the district back on track after the APS cheating scandal that rocked the city. For many of us who covered that sad event, Meria certainly has been more than a breath of fresh air. She has been a game changer and someone who has given the city a lift post some very, very troubled and dark waters here. Today, Dr. Carstarphen oversees a district that includes nearly 52,000 students, 6,000 full-time employees, 87 schools. APS has a $1 billion annual budget, as you know. And during her tenure, the district has seen improvements in so many areas. Just pick it. Where would you like to see? Would you like to begin with the graduation rate? Why not? 18% increase. How about the increase in the number of students scoring proficient and above their testing? An increase in the number of graduates going to college, and an increase in the number of engaged employees, which now exceeds the national average for K-12. Take a look at any polling among those of us who live in the city of Atlanta, and what will you see and hear? You will hear support for her, and you will see it in the hard, cold numbers of which many of us in the media have been reading about over the last couple of weeks. Despite these many successes and the support of Congressman John Lewis, last month the APS board voted not to renew Dr. Carstarphen's contract when it expires in June. And I know we look forward to hearing from Dr. Carstarphen. As always, a ray of light and a breath of fresh air in the city, community, and region. Meria, it's all yours.
The present conditions and dark circumstance may make it appear that I have not a chance. The odds may be against me. This fact I admit. I haven't much to boast of, just a little faith and grit. In spite of the things that stand in my way, I'm determined to be somebody someday. That somebody today is Quantavious. He was giving the valedictorian address for the class of 2016 for Best Academy. He outlines in his address, almost by happenstance, the new framework for how to measure success that is great for all students, not just some, for Atlanta Public Schools. It's a framework that's anchored in a child-centered agenda, a culture that requires a balance of three things: exposure to a different world that a mentor or a community service can bring, early, rigorous school learnings with high expectations in academics from a beloved educator, and authentic engagement from the caregivers and families of the child. It's a simple, straightforward strategy that, with the support of a caring adult, quality educators, and family well-being, can give a child hope for their future, even when all of life's circumstances should leave that child feeling hopeless. With this approach, Quantavious navigated a school system that Jeff just described, broken for almost all of his schooling, but he found enough success in practical skills and experience in the classroom and in the social emotional health to have enough strength to break the cycle of intergenerational poverty by graduating from high school on time and going on to a college of his choice. He was one of the first students I met in my tenure. It was his last 2 years in APS and my first 2 years as superintendent. Quantavious was my mentee, but in many ways, he was my mentor, revealing to me more of the truth behind a child's life in Atlanta, what was really happening behind the headlines and the research that Frank told you about. Headline from the Brookings Institute: How Atlanta Became the Capital of Income Inequality. Truth: the median income of white families in Atlanta exceed $167,000, while those for black families is around $24,000. For Quantavious's family, that meant there was never enough food in the house, and his mom never had access to reliable transportation. Headline from the Hechinger Report: Analysis of achievement gaps in every school in America shows that being poor is the biggest hurdle. Truth: Stanford University research found that a child born in poverty in Atlanta like Quantavius, has only a 4.5% chance to rise to the top quarter of earners. Headline from the Center of Disease Control Research: between Buckhead and Bankhead, life expectancy has a 25-year gap. Truth: odds are that one or more of Quantavius's friends, if they stay in Bankhead, will die before they can retire, while another student a little more than 5 miles away in Buckhead will live to the ripe old age of 87. His life illustrates what it means to be a black boy in Atlanta, a child born in poverty, a kid who grew up in a neighborhood surrounded by drugs and trap houses. He represents both long-standing inequities in Atlanta and also the majority of students we serve in the district. Overwhelmingly black, 3/4, overwhelmingly poor, 3/4. Of course, not all students have the same experiences as Quantavius, but all of them, every single last one of them, hope for and deserve a choice-filled life. And just as Quantavius started his speech, thanking God for allowing him to experience his life plan, I too felt I came to Atlanta on a mission of faith that rose above any adult agenda. A mission to help kids who were cheated, families who were deceived, and taxpayers who were shortchanged. When I came here over 5 years ago, Atlanta Public Schools was not delivering on any educational purpose. I inherited a district exposed by a cheating scandal that was structured for failure. APS exhibited many elements of a broken school system that you hear about in the research. Long-standing insufficient control of key operating mechanisms for the enterprise, contradictory charter, state, and policy guidance, disparate educational philosophies for improvement, and a culture of corruption and mistrust. So why do it? Why take the risk? Why take on one of the biggest turnaround challenges in public education? Districts across the country with large numbers of black and brown and poor children continue to work on the fringe, making some progress and gains, just like APS. But the pattern is that none of these urban districts really ever make a commitment to the wholesale effort that is required to break the cycle of poverty, break the cycle of violence, break the cycle of illiteracy, break the cycle of organizational and political dysfunction. Given what I've seen in my career across the country in other urban school systems, Atlanta offered a unique context that gave me hope for public education, if you can believe it. Where most people saw hopelessness, I saw a community that was willing to make the necessary changes for this urban district to be a more stable, higher achieving system for all children. They made a change after the cheating scandal. This one American capital city district could develop its own homegrown educated workforce, which would break the long-standing inequities of a city that has struggled with race and poverty for far too long. Changing the staff, moving boundary lines, all things that get people riled up and stressed out. We put a ton of pressure on people and ourselves. But even in all that, support and trust grew. We have more than 350 partners now. They're raising $72 million in private resources just to support our kids in APS. In fact, Atlanta overwhelmingly approved the renewal of the 1 penny sales tax called eSplosh to support the bricks and mortar and development of our buildings. That was another leap of faith. So after so many years of distrust and heartache, we are humbled to see the public pride and support of the work we've been doing and are still doing in Atlanta Public Schools. It's nothing short of a miracle to change culture. To do it in your organization is one thing. To do it for people in the public who may not even be choosing Atlanta Public Schools is incredible. So I am very proud of the progress we've made. We've come a long way, we're on the right track, and who wouldn't feel tempted to take a victory lap and admire the progress? I get it, I've been here. We all feel like we put a lot into it. And after the lift and the lift and the lift, some are tired and some do want to be rewarded. Even though, like Quantavious said, when people raise your bowed head and straighten your bowed back, we must go longer, push further, try harder, just like he did to graduate from high school. 2 words, achievement gap. The work's not done, the turnaround plan's not finished, and many, many more of our students must be proficient and distinguished learners before we can actually say they're college and career prepared. On all 24 assessments in the milestones, you can look across the subjects and the grade levels, and you will find that on average, APS sits at about 30 to 40% of our children being proficient. When you flip that and take that away from 100%, that means that the overwhelming majority of our kids still aren't where they need to be at an acceptable state standard. When we drill deeper and consider socioeconomics or go into the space of race, the results are absolutely sobering. We can take any of those results again, and when you look at white student performance, it is above 80%. When you look at black student performance, it is closer to 25%, which leaves you with a whopping achievement gap that still needs to be addressed. So how do you know when progress is actually happening? In 2016, we took 2 schools, Barack and Michelle Obama Academy and Hollis Innovation Academy. Both were part of our turnaround strategy. They reported at the time, before our turnaround efforts, about a 7% proficiency rate for the students, 7%. Today, they have 10 percentage points or a little above, double-digit percentage point improvement. So now we're almost at 20% proficiency. That is a heavy lift when some of these schools were the lowest performing schools in the state of Georgia for multiple years, or schools that had been the highest poverty schools in the state of Georgia for multiple years. And having said that, what we know is getting things unstuck is the lift that begins our efforts to do the next round of work. So it didn't happen by accident. The plan was incredibly aggressive. We changed a lot of stuff about the structure and the design, but we also did something else. We teamed up with partners and people who brought in a lot of additional resources, time, people, and money to make it possible to even get that lift in the gains. The Westside Future Fund provided $16 million alone to Hollis Innovation Academy to focus on programming, to get additional academic supports, and to ensure that the wraparound services would be there. And that's the good news of growth and gains. But again, you flip the math, you still have 80% of the kids who aren't where they need to be. So to achieve gap closing results, Atlanta Public Schools has to stay on its educational purpose, to provide a high quality education so that students actually get the skills they need to go on and get that choice-filled life. It's academic skills so they graduate on time and go on to that college of their choice. It is career skills so that they can be competitive in a rapidly evolving global economy. It's decision-making and social emotional learning skills so that they can participate as an informed citizen in a democracy, but also have the smarts and the hearts to be better people than the people we are. These are the skills the workforce expects from our graduates. Access to a high-quality education is the cornerstone of our democracy. And we have done that, started that. It must continue. We've tried a turnaround legacy and for better collaboration, for improved outcomes, but more time will be needed to dramatically close those gaps for the most vulnerable students in Atlanta Public Schools. So in the coming months, This is what you can expect to see me doing. We'll continue the work of the strategic and turnaround plans. We'll set up APS to accelerate closing those achievement gaps, identify more areas where we can address inequities that will need to be resourced, and we will double down on our literacy campaign with partners and families. This work will require devoted, energized, committed voices who pledge to continue to do the hard work. I remain committed to children and families, quality educational opportunities, and workforce development in Atlanta for our future. I am reminded every day, if you look at the slide, every day when I get in the elevator at my office. To the far right is Quantavius Stiggers in his cap and gown, along with other beautiful students from APS. They are our daily, hourly, almost minute by minute, when you're running up and down through those floors, as a reminder that every time you walk into our work, you're walking into the life of a child. And so you better bring the thunder, because every child in Atlanta deserves that choice-filled life. The odds may have been against us. This fact, I admit. We have had some success to boast about, along with our faith and Atlanta grit. In spite of the things that stood in our way, we were determined to ensure our students would be somebody someday. Thank you.
Member of the media, I'm an educator, I teach at Emory.
And your name is?
Jeff Rosenzweig. I ran the Ethics Center, head of a business and public policy program. But I'm a white guy who lives in Buckhead. And what I found out is there was an independent poll which polled white parents and black parents about would they like you to continue, basically. Do we need you to continue? It struck me that more white parents, Meria reported it, or equal amount wants you to continue, something like 70%. Furthermore, the John Lewis letter, I think more than half the people that signed it are white. Liz Blake, the sponsor, Bob Hope, who's a great leader. What are some things that you would say give such great support from wealthy people, from white people? Is it the fact that you're helping our future workforce, that all kids throughout the system are getting such a great education? It struck me as a statistician, it was roughly 70% or more white and black, with no difference statistically between them. I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, so first, we, like I said, it is a validation. I mean, we're humbled by it. I don't think, like I said, it was unbeknownst to us that there was that much public understanding, patience, support for what felt like, while we were going through it, a really hard time and making a lot of tough decisions. And we heard a lot during that time about what people didn't like and a little of what they wanted, but it was more pushback. But I think part of it has been that everyone knows that we are on an agenda for all children. We do not care where their zip code is. It does not make a difference to us. We have a mission that says all kids need to be college and career ready. And make no mistake, the lift needed to happen in every area of this city. North Atlanta, as a high school, for example, graduation rates were in the 70s. Now it's in the 90s. But the point is, every school across this district could be doing and should have been doing a lot better.
Pick up in a loud voice.
Thank you. I'm Sharice Jefferson. I'm a political strategist. I've got two questions.
I need you.
I'm going to try to ask the question and be diplomatic. I have two questions for you. As you know, 80% of the students in the Atlanta public schools are not reading on grade level. There's also an influx of IEP students and a lack of special education teachers available to teach those students. Given those realities, how do you justify the accelerated graduation rate that you've disseminated to the public?
Yeah, so our special education data is also encouraging. I mean, we've seen, we've also been removed from disproportionality on the over-identification of special ed African Americans, especially boys, within that data. So the grad rate for us is literally about working through. So you're talking about, one full cohort, if you will. You know how it works, it's a cohort rate. Basically what you're talking about is making sure that kids who are off track, getting them the courses they need, opportunities to be able to recapture those courses and get on track for graduation. That has included some special ed students, as you can see in the rates, and in others, not as much. But what we know is that on the aggregate for almost all the groups, including Hispanic students, there has been a lift in our ability to graduate kids on time.
Well, I kind of know what that first 2 years was like because I actually was in the school system when the cheating scandal happened, which kind of segues into my second question. It's about the arts. And I'm going to remove myself as a political strategist, and I'm going to talk from the perspective of someone who is a product of the Atlanta Public Schools. Had it not been for the Atlanta Public Schools, I would not be educated today, 2 times over. Under your administration, instructional arts has become decentralized, leaving it up to the principals to now decide whether or not they want to have the arts in schools. My question to you is very simple. Explain to us, how do you educate the whole child without a comprehensive arts program?
We do have a comprehensive arts program. As a matter of fact, it is a complete plan. It's around being an arts-centered school and an arts-rich district. Exactly what you said, that some people were choosing to cut out whole child development and double down just on content. And so we went back and corrected for that and then built out this plan. But I would argue, given the investment that we make, certainly the strength that we have in our new fine arts coordinator in Sarah Womack, that arts are stronger today than they ever were. And just so that, again, I try not to think about the first year in the job as much these days, but I do remember a time where you will walk into school and you had the arts teacher, but they had no students in the class, or where there were people who were actually supposed to be teaching but had not been to work for weeks and months on end. So there was a lot of bad behavior inside of APS, and we did have to break some things down to build them back up. And that year 1 and 2 was a lot of that work. But I am confident that our arts work is stronger and is absolutely part of the whole child curriculum.